I never thought my life would take such a sharp turn, but here I am, sitting in my new kitchen, staring out the window at the neighbor's house where my wife, Sarah, decided to play house with someone else. A house I once considered a sanctuary has now morphed into a painful reminder of betrayal. But before we get into the specifics, let me backtrack a bit and paint the picture of my life before the storm. Sarah and I had been married for over 7 years. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and eventually built a life together in a suburban neighborhood filled with friendly faces and the occasional barbecue. Everything seemed perfect at a glance. Jobs were stable, we had our routines, and weekends were often spent with our neighbor, Mike, watching football or sharing a few beers. I trusted Sarah implicitly. That was my first mistake. But then came the hints. They were subtle at first. Sarah started working late more often, blamming it on deadlines and demanding projects. I kept telling myself it was her job. I mean, everyone has busy periods, right? But there were also those little things, her phone buzzing at odd hours, her sudden interest in girls' nights that frequently turned into weekend-long affairs. And whenever I asked her about them, she'd brush it off with a laugh and a kiss, telling me I was being paranoid. Looking back, I see that denial was my refuge, a comfortable lie I wrapped myself in until the truth came crashing down. The discovery was like a punch to the gut. It happened on a Tuesday, ordinary enough, but I had that nagging feeling in my gut. Sarah had claimed she was going to a work event, but the timing felt off. The way she hurriedly dressed, the little smirk on her face, it all felt orchestrated. After she left, I decided to do something I'd never done. I took a look at her phone while she was out. I know, privacy is key in a relationship, but I needed answers. Scrolling through her messages was like peeling an onion. The deeper I dug, the more layers of deceit I uncovered. There they were, explicit texts between her and Mike, filled with inside jokes and flirtation that made my stomach turn. The final blow was a photo of them together, arms draped around each other, smiles that I thought were only for me. I felt cold, like all the warmth in the room evaporated in an instant. My heart raced, and I nearly dropped the phone as I fought to process the betrayal. When she came home, I confronted her. The look on her face, absolute outrage mixed with shock, was something I'll never forget. "What the hell are you talking about?" she snapped, her voice laced with desperation. I held up the phone, her eyes darting to the screen. "You think you can just hide this from me?" I spat, letting all my anger flow out. She stumbled through excuses, claiming it was just a stupid fling that meant nothing, that I was overreacting. But how could she dismiss it like that? My heart was shattered into pieces as I listened to her lie through her teeth. I felt betrayed, deceived, and filled with an anger I had never known. I was supposed to be her partner, her confidant, yet here I was, standing in the wreckage of our marriage, a casualty of her infidelity. The emotional fallout hit me hard. One minute I was furious, seeing red. The next I was simply devastated. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger. How could she do this to us? It took a while, but I began to process the roller coaster of emotions. My anger morphed into sadness, and I felt every bit of the weight of my loss. The home we built together, the plans we made, all tarnished by her betrayal. I knew I needed to make a choice, to decide what my next steps would be. The days turned into a blur of tears, anger, and a desperate need for clarity. As the dust settled, I began to see the path ahead of me. It wasn't about saving a broken marriage, it was about me reclaiming my life. I couldn't stay in that house, haunted by memories of Sarah and her betrayal. I decided it was time to move on, and that's where my new journey begins. In the next part, I'll share how I executed my plan and the things I learned along the way. Once the shock began to fade, I found myself grappling with the question, what now? I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me. It was time for a change, a fresh start. As I began planning my escape from the pain, I realized I needed a new environment, something to distance myself from the memories of Sarah and the life we had. It was a strange feeling, packing up my belongings. Each item felt like an anchor to a past filled with both love and lies. The couch where we laughed together, the pictures on the walls capturing our smiles, all became reminders of what had been and what could never be again. I found myself staring at those photographs, wanting to tear them down, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I shoved them into a box, a physical representation of my desire to bury the past. I started looking at new houses, scouring listings online until I found a place that felt right. It was a quaint little cottage on the outskirts of town, surrounded by trees and a peaceful quiet that felt like a balm to my bruised heart. The moment I stepped inside, I imagined a future untainted by betrayal, no memories of Sarah lingering in the corners. The house had a yard where I could plant a garden, a space for me to rebuild and find myself again. It felt liberating to make this choice for me without her input or influence. As I signed the papers and prepped for the move, I felt a sense of power returning to me. It wasn't just about leaving Sarah, it was about taking control of my own life. I began to envision what my new life would look like without her in it. Sure, the anger and sadness would still linger, but I felt more determined than ever to not let those feelings consume me. Then came the day of the move. I hired movers, and as they loaded everything into the truck, I could hardly contain the mix of emotions coursing through me. Part of me wanted to scream, "Look at me, I'm escaping," while another part feared what lay ahead. I watched as they loaded the last box, and in that moment a wave of relief washed over me. I was free. I was leaving behind not just the house, but the weight of her betrayal. Once I was in the new place, it was time to unpack and make it my own. I dedicated the first few weeks to transforming the cottage into a sanctuary. I painted the walls bright colors, hung up new art, and furnished the space with things that reflected who I was. No more shared decisions, just my choices. Every brush stroke, every piece of furniture felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been lost. Despite the joy of decorating my new space, there were moments when I'd find myself staring out the window, thinking of Sarah. I remembered the times we spent together, the little things that made our life special. But those memories were tainted now, and I reminded myself that I was better off without her. I often thought about Mike, the guy she cheated with, and how all of this would play out. Did he even realize what he was getting himself into? Did he think she could ever be faithful to him? Then one evening the unexpected happened. I was sitting on my porch, enjoying a cold drink and the peace surrounding me, when I saw Sarah pull up in front of the house. My heart raced, caught off guard by the sight of her. She looked different, hair pulled back tightly, wearing an expression that mixed anger and desperation. My gut instinct was to retreat inside to hide from her, but something pushed me to stay put. She stormed up to me, her voice high and frantic. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. I could see the flicker of emotions dancing in her eyes, regret, anger, perhaps even a hint of longing. "What do you want, Sarah?" I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. Her response was a mix of defensiveness and vulnerability. She started spouting off excuses, claiming she missed me and that she was sorry for what had happened. But deep down, I could feel the manipulation seeping through her words. "You think I want to hear this from you?" I shot back. "You made your choice, and now I'm living with the consequences." Her face twisted in frustration as she launched into a tirade about how everything had spiraled out of control, how she never meant to hurt me. But I was done listening to her lies. I had spent too many years brushing aside red flags and denying the truth. I stood my ground, refusing to let her back into my life. I could see it then, the faintest glimmer of the woman I once loved, overshadowed by the betrayal she had wrought. "I'm not going back, Sarah. I've moved on," I said firmly, the weight of my words sinking into the air between us. The look on her face, both shocked and angry, was everything I needed to reinforce my decision. It was time for me to cut ties completely. The last sliver of hope I had for our relationship evaporated in that moment, and I felt a new sense of clarity. As Sarah walked away, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was no longer the man shackled by her deceit. I had taken the first step toward healing, toward rediscovering who I was outside of our marriage. The journey wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to emerge stronger. In the next part, I'll dive deeper into how I found my footing in this new life, and how I started to rebuild after the ashes of my old life. After the confrontation with Sarah, I felt lighter but also acutely aware that I was still in the early stages of my healing process. I had made significant strides by moving into my new cottage, but the emotional turbulence was far from over. Each day brought its own challenges, and I had to learn how to navigate a life that felt both liberating and daunting. The first week in my new home felt surreal. I spent countless hours unpacking boxes and rearranging furniture until I found a layout that felt right. I wanted this space to reflect a new beginning, a fresh slate where I could rediscover myself. But despite the colorful paint on the walls and the scent of new furniture, there were moments of silence that echoed the loneliness I felt. I missed the companionship, the simple conversations, even the occasional arguments. But then, I reminded myself of what I was escaping. Those moments were woven with deceit, masked under a blanket of normalcy. To help fill the void, I decided to reach out to friends who had been there for me long before I married Sarah. I hadn't realized how isolated I had become during our marriage, how I had let my social life dwindle in favor of focusing solely on our relationship. So I made a couple of calls and arranged to meet up with my old buddies, Jake and Aaron. They were both thrilled to hear from me and eager to help me get back into the swing of things. One Friday night, we met at a local bar. As soon as I walked in, I felt the familiar atmosphere wash over me, a mix of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. I found Jake and Aaron at a table already nursing drinks. The moment they saw me, they stood to greet me with sincere excitement. It felt good to be among friends again. "Dude, we've missed you," Jake said, pulling me in for a solid hug. "It's been way too long. How's the new place?" "It's great, actually," I replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. "I'm still unpacking and getting settled, but it feels good to start fresh." "Good to hear," Aaron chimed in. "You deserve it, so what's the deal with Sarah? Have you talked to her at all?" I took a deep breath, torn between wanting to vent about the betrayal and not wanting to dwell on the past. I shared a bit about the confrontation, leaving out the raw details for my friends to absorb. I could see the concern etched on their faces as I recounted the story, and I appreciated their support. "Sounds like you're doing the right thing by moving on," Jake said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings, my friend. To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against theirs. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and camaraderie, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could find happiness again, even if it meant redefining what that happiness would look like. As the night wore on, I lost myself in the rhythm of the bar, allowing the music and laughter to drown out the painful memories. I shared stories and caught up on their lives, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of belonging. I realized how valuable these connections were and how I had neglected them during my marriage. The more I laughed, the more I felt the weight of Sarah's betrayal lift off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, I made it a point to go out more, whether it was joining friends for dinner or exploring local events. I even started getting involved in a few community activities, like volunteering at the local animal shelter. It felt good to be helping others and to be part of something greater than myself. Those moments were therapeutic. They reminded me of my worth and the joy of connecting with others without the shadow of betrayal looming over my head. On a particularly sunny Saturday, I decided to take a walk through one of the nearby parks. The fresh air and greenery invigorated me, and I found myself smiling at the sight of families playing, couples strolling hand in hand, and dogs bounding after frisbees. It was a stark contrast to the heaviness I had felt just weeks prior. I realized that while my past was riddled with pain, the future was full of possibilities. That day, I bumped into an old acquaintance, Lisa, who I remembered from high school. She was sitting on a bench, engrossed in a book. When she looked up and recognized me, her face lit up with a warm smile. "Wow, it's been ages. How have you been?" she said, standing to give me a friendly hug. We started chatting, and it felt natural and easy, like picking up right where we left off years ago. I told her about the move and how I was trying to rebuild. After my marriage ended, she expressed her sympathy and offered a listening ear. We exchanged numbers and promised to stay in touch. As the days went by, I found myself texting Lisa more frequently. She was refreshingly honest and had a wonderful sense of humor that lightened my mood. We decided to meet up for coffee one afternoon, and what started as a casual hangout soon blossomed into something deeper. I felt a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was exhilarating. The thrill of getting to know someone without the baggage of a broken relationship was refreshing. One evening, as we sat together in a cozy coffee shop, I realized that I was genuinely enjoying myself. Lisa was easy to talk to, and I found comfort in her presence. We both shared stories about our pasts, the good, the bad, and everything in between. For the first time, I allowed myself to envision the possibility of happiness again. Yet, as I started to explore this new connection, a part of me was cautious. I didn't want to rush into anything, especially not after what I had just gone through. I reminded myself to take things slow, too. Ensure I was ready for a relationship again. I needed to be whole before I could share my life with someone else. But as the days turned into weeks, I found myself laughing more often, feeling lighter, and letting go of the anger and sadness that had once consumed me. I was redefining what my life could look like, and it felt liberating. In the next part, I'll share how my newfound confidence began to reshape the way I viewed relationships and how I continued to heal from the scars of the past. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself settling into a new rhythm, one that was fueled by hope and renewed self-discovery. The emotional wounds from my past gradually began to heal, replaced by a sense of empowerment that became my driving force. I embraced the lessons learned from my relationship with Sarah, vowing never to fall into the same traps again. My friendship with Lisa blossomed. We spent weekends exploring new coffee shops, attending local events, and even hiking some of the nearby trails. There was something refreshing about the way she approached life, with a sense of curiosity and adventure that was contagious. The more time we spent together, the more I felt my heart begin to mend. It was as if I had unknowingly been waiting for someone like her to come into my life, a companion who reminded me that joy still existed, waiting to be rediscovered. One particular Saturday, we decided to take a day trip to the beach. As we packed up the car, I was filled with excitement. I hadn't been to the beach in ages, and the thought of spending a sunny day by the ocean felt like a reward for all the hard work I had put into healing. We arrived to a stunning scene, golden sand stretching out under a brilliant blue sky, the sound of waves crashing providing a soothing backdrop. It felt like a small slice of paradise. We set up our spot, laid out a blanket, and settled in for a day of laughter, sun, and relaxation. As we talked and joked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of lightness that had been absent for far too long. The salt air filled my lungs, and for the first time in ages, I felt truly free. I looked over at Lisa, her hair dancing in the breeze, and I realized just how much she meant to me. But then a thought crept into my mind, the nagging fear of vulnerability. I had been hurt once, and the fear of being hurt again loomed large in the back of my mind. Would I be able to trust again? Would I be able to truly open my heart to someone new? It was a daunting realization, but I knew that if I wanted to explore this connection with Lisa, I had to confront those fears head-on. Later that evening, as we watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I decided to share my thoughts with her. "You know, I've really enjoyed spending time with you," I began, nervously looking at her. "But I want to be honest, I'm still working through some things from my past. It's been tough, and I'm scared of getting hurt again." To my surprise, Lisa smiled gently, her eyes softening with understanding. "I get it. I've had my share of challenges too," she replied. "But I believe that it's worth taking risks. Life is too short to let fear hold us back." Her words resonated with me, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I appreciated her honesty and the fact that she was willing to accept me, scars and all. That moment marked a turning point for me. It was a reminder that while my past would always be part of my story, it didn't have to dictate my future. I was ready to embrace new experiences, to allow myself to feel and trust again. With Lisa by my side, I felt empowered to face whatever came next. As the weeks passed, we continued to deepen our connection, both emotionally and physically. There were moments of sweet intimacy that brought a warmth to my heart that I thought I would never feel again. But through all of it, I made sure to keep the lines of communication open. We talked about our hopes, dreams, and even our fears. It was refreshing to build a relationship based on transparency instead of the deceptive shadows of my past. Yet despite the joy and renewal I felt, there were still moments of reflection where I couldn't help but think about Sarah. I found myself replaying memories, sometimes with anger, other times with sadness. I had invested so much into that relationship, only to have it shattered by betrayal. But I knew I couldn't let those memories consume me. I had to honor the lesson learned. Trust is hard-earned and should never be taken for granted. One night, as I lay in bed thinking about my journey, I felt a surge of gratitude wash over me. I was moving forward, growing stronger with each passing day. I realized that my experience with Sarah had shaped me, but it didn't have to define me. I was carving out my own identity, one that was no longer tied to the past. As the seasons changed, I also found myself embracing new hobbies. I took up painting, something I had always wanted to try but never had the time for during my marriage. I found solace in the strokes of the brush and the vivid colors that came alive on the canvas. My art became an outlet for emotions I hadn't fully processed, a creative expression of my healing journey. One day, while painting in my living room, I heard a knock at the door. I wiped my hands on a rag and opened it to find Lisa standing there holding a small bouquet of flowers. "I thought you could use a little cheer," she said, a bright smile lighting up her face. Her thoughtfulness warmed my heart. As we spent the afternoon together, the conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about our dreams for the future and even made plans for a weekend getaway. I felt a thrill of excitement at the thought of experiencing life with her, something I hadn't felt in a long time. But just as I was allowing myself to fully embrace this new chapter, the past came knocking again in a way I hadn't anticipated. In the next part, I'll delve into how my past confronted me unexpectedly and how I navigated the challenges that came with it. Just as I was beginning to feel settled in my new life, the past came rushing back with an unexpected intensity. It was a regular Tuesday evening while I was in the midst of preparing dinner when my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Glancing at the screen, my heart dropped. They were the last three digits I expected to see. Sarah's number. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something compelled me to answer. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" Sarah's voice came through, sounding a mix of hesitant and urgent. The tone caught me off guard. It was different from our last encounter where she was defensive and angry. Now she sounded vulnerable. "About what?" I replied, my heart racing. I want to explain some things. Can we meet?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I felt a whirlwind of emotions swirl inside me. Part of me wanted to slam the phone down, to remind her of the pain she caused me, but another part, perhaps the part that still held onto the remnants of the love I once had, was curious about what she wanted to say. "Fine. Let's meet at the coffee shop down the street tomorrow," I said, surprising even myself with my calmness. I hung up the phone feeling both anxious and apprehensive. The next day I arrived at the coffee shop early, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would she try to manipulate me again? Or was this a genuine attempt to seek closure? I ordered a coffee and sat at a corner table trying to steady my nerves. When Sarah walked in, she looked different. Her usual confidence was replaced by a more fragile demeanor. She wore a simple sundress, hair down around her shoulders, but the shadows under her eyes hinted at sleepless nights. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, taking a seat across from me. Her voice was soft, devoid of the hostility I had seen last time. I nodded, crossing my arms defensively. "What do you want, Sarah?" She took a breath, her eyes welling up with tears. "I know I hurt you. I messed everything up. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I just wanted to apologize. I was selfish and I never considered how my actions would affect you." For a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy for her, but as quickly as it came, anger rushed back in. "You think an apology changes anything? You broke my trust. You shattered our life together." "I know," she admitted, her voice breaking, "but I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I took you for granted, and I'm sorry for that. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know how deeply I regret what I did." I stared at her, trying to decipher the sincerity behind her words. Was this genuine remorse or just another attempt to manipulate me? You had your chance to show me you cared, Sarah. You chose Mike over me. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it, I replied, my tone clipped. She looked down, biting her lip as if holding back tears. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but do you ever think about us, about what we had? The question struck a nerve. It was hard not to think about the life we built together, the dreams we shared, the love we once had, but those thoughts were now tainted by her betrayal. Sometimes, I admitted reluctantly, but the memories come with a lot of pain. I'm not the same person I was when we were together. She looked up at me, vulnerability etched on her face. I understand, I wanted you to know that I'm working on myself. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to figure out why I made those choices. I don't expect anything from you, but I hope you can find peace. Her words hung in the air between us, thick with unresolved emotions. I considered her for a moment, feeling a mix of pity and anger. You hurt me, Sarah. That's not something that just goes away with an apology. I know, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. I don't expect you to understand, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. I remained silent, processing everything she had just said. Part of me wanted to reach out and comfort her, to assure her that everything would be okay. But I was still grappling with my own healing, and that wasn't fair to either of us. I need to go, I finally said, standing up. I wish you well, but I can't do this right now. I walked away, feeling a strange mixture of closure and lingering resentment. Once outside, I took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill my lungs. I made my way back to my cottage, my mind racing. I couldn't believe I had just had that conversation. It was a stark reminder of the scars I still carried, but it also reinforced my decision to move on. I was no longer the man who would tolerate betrayal. I was learning to stand strong in my own truth. That evening, I met up with Lisa for dinner, needing the comfort and support of my newfound connection. Over plates of pasta, I recounted my conversation with Sarah, sharing my mixed emotions. I didn't want to feel anything for her, but it was hard to see her so vulnerable, I admitted. Lisa was understanding, listening intently. It's okay to feel conflicted, she said gently. You invested years of your life with her. Healing takes time, and it's natural to have those feelings pop up now and then. Just remember how far you've come. Her words soothed me, and I felt grateful to have someone like her in my life. As the night progressed, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift again. Each moment spent with Lisa reinforced the idea that I was moving forward, inviting new experiences rather than letting the shadows of my past dictate my happiness. In the final part, I'll explore how my experiences shaped my outlook on love and relationships, and how I finally embraced a future filled with hope and possibility. As the days turned into weeks, I began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. My encounter with Sarah had stirred up old emotions, but it also served as a reminder of how far I had come since the collapse of my marriage. I had spent months reclaiming my life, surrounding myself with supportive friends, and building a bond with Lisa that felt genuine and refreshing. I was no longer defined by my past. I was creating a new narrative for myself. The healing process is not linear, and I learned that the scars of betrayal would take time to fade. I still had moments of doubt, times when I wondered if I was truly ready to embrace love again. Was I equipped to open my heart after what I had been through? I often found myself asking these questions, but with each passing day, I felt a growing confidence that I had the strength to navigate a new relationship without the baggage of old wounds weighing me down. One weekend, Lisa and I decided to take a short trip to the mountains. I was excited at the prospect of sharing this time with her, away from the distractions of everyday life. As we hiked through the lush greenery and breathed in the fresh, crisp air, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't experienced in years. The beauty of nature surrounded us, and I could see Lisa's joy reflected in the way she marveled at the scenery. On our second night, we set up a campfire beneath the stars, the crackling flames casting a warm glow on our faces. As we talked and laughed, I knew I wanted to take a step forward in our relationship. You know, I've really enjoyed our time together, I said, looking into her eyes. I appreciate your patience with me. I'm still learning how to let go of the past, but I feel like I can trust you." Lisa smiled, her expression softening. "I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter where this goes. We can take it slow, I'm in no rush. What matters is that you're comfortable." Her reassuring words melted away the final doubts I had been holding onto. That night, we shared more than just stories. We shared a moment of intimacy surrounded by the beauty of nature. It felt intimate and genuine, without the pressure or anxiety I had felt in my past relationship. I was finally learning to embrace vulnerability, aware that love could be something beautiful and fulfilling instead of a painful reminder of betrayal. As the months passed, my connection with Lisa deepened. We explored more together, building new memories that were full of laughter and joy. I began to understand that the love I shared with Sarah, while once vibrant, was overshadowed by deception. In contrast, my relationship with Lisa was built on honesty and mutual respect, a foundation I had longed for but hadn't truly experienced before. I also took time to reflect on the lessons learned from my relationship with Sarah. I realized that love requires trust, communication, and effort from both partners. I was grateful for the experience, no matter how painful it had been. It had forced me to confront my fears and emerge stronger on the other side. I learned that I could still love and be loved, that trust can be rebuilt, and that there is beauty in new beginnings. The final test came one afternoon when I received a text from Sarah. "I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to let you know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I hope you find happiness." I felt a mix of emotions wash over me, but this time it was different. Instead of anger or resentment, I felt a sense of closure. I took a deep breath, reflecting on how far I had come since that fateful day when I discovered her betrayal. I realized that I had moved on, not just physically but emotionally as well. I replied, "Thank you. I appreciate your message. I'm moving forward and focusing on the future." With that, I put my phone down and turned to Lisa, who was sitting across from me. Her warm smile reassured me that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As I reached for her hand, I felt a surge of gratitude. This was my life now, a life not defined by betrayal but one built on authenticity, joy, and love. I had learned that while the past could not be erased, it could be reframed as a lesson learned. I embraced the idea that life would continue to throw challenges my way, but with the right mindset and support, I could face anything that came my way. Looking forward, I felt hopeful. I was ready to embrace the future, knowing that love could flourish in unexpected places. I was ready to face each new day without the weight of my past holding me back, with Lisa by my side, ready to write our own story together, one filled with promise, laughter, and an openness to the beauty of new beginnings.